Hello there. My name is Abby, and I have quite the story for you. When I was in my early 20s, I loved going out partying with my friends. We would go dancing all night long in some of the best nightclubs. It was at one of those clubs that I met Jordan. He was so handsome, and he was very wealthy. I later learned that he worked for a major car manufacturer, and that he was making a lot of money. He took an immediate interest in me, and the two of us started dating. And one thing led to another, and we were engaged less than a year later. The wedding was over-the-top extravagant, and probably cost a small fortune. But Jordan insisted that I was worth it. For the next 10 years, things were pretty amazing. We had 2 sons together, and traveled the world to exotic locations. The only downside to everything was that Jordan's job made him travel nearly constantly. In any given month, he was gone for roughly 21 out of every 30 days. I would be lying if I didn't find his absence a bit tasking on our marriage, but I just assumed that every marriage had its ups and downs. While I didn't see much of Jordan, he was working hard to provide for me and our sons, so I just did my best and put up with it. That is, until I heard a knock on my front door. I looked through the peephole and was confused when I saw a woman roughly my age standing there with a young girl next to her. At a first glance, the young girl almost looked like my sons. Cautiously, I opened the door. So, we finally meet face to face. I wish I could say that it was a pleasure, but meeting you just makes this nightmare all the more real. I'm sorry, but what are you talking about? Who are you, and why are you here? My name is Samantha Wright, and these photos will make things a bit clearer. Had I heard her correctly? She had the same last name as my husband and I. As I stood there confused, she reached into her purse and pulled out a few photos, and then passed them to me. Slowly, I looked at each one carefully. All of them were pictures of Samantha, her daughter, and my husband. One was them at a beach, another at a BBQ, and the third was of just Samantha and my husband dressed up like a married couple. I didn't know what to make of what I was seeing. May we come in? We have a lot to talk about. I nodded my head, unsure what to do. Once they were inside, I closed the door behind them. You deserve to know the truth. Listen to me. This is going to be a shock. That first photo was taken 7 years ago on our wedding. I used to think that my husband was cheating on me, but then I hired a private investigator, and what they found out was so much worse. What do you mean? I don't understand. Jordan married both of us. He married you first, but a few years later, he married me as well. This is our daughter, Claire. Technically, she's a half-sister to your children. I didn't know if she was telling the truth or some very outlandish lie, but I couldn't deny that her husband did look a lot like my husband and sons. I knew that you would have a hard time believing me, so I brought this as well. She reached into her purse and pulled out Claire's birth certificate. And on it was Jordan's signature on the line that was reserved for the father of the child. On top of that, she produced a piece of paper with Jordan's work details on it. I had to admit that if this was a scam, it was a pretty elaborate one. Okay, if I accept that what you're saying is true, then why did you come here? Because it needs to end. We aren't the only ones. He has another wife in the next city over. That's where he is right now. I just thought that maybe you would want to confront him. Abby, I'm living the same kind of life as you, and it's no way to live. Our husband is gone for most of the time, and our kids never get to see him. No matter how much money Jordan has, it isn't worth it. We can do so much better. Come with me. Let's go confront him and make him pay for betraying our trust. I still didn't know if she was telling the truth, but I knew that if I went with her, and that Jordan was indeed with this third woman, that it would confirm what she was saying. And so, we packed up the kids and drove over to the next city. and parked in front of a mansion that was even bigger than my own. We didn't bother knocking on the door and just stormed inside. Thankfully, it wasn't locked, and once inside, we looked around and saw photos on a table in the front hallway, much like the ones that Samantha had shown me. These were of Jordan and another woman on their wedding day, next to a few where Jordan was standing and posing with 3 children who all looked like him. When I saw the photos, it was hard to deny the fact that Samantha had been telling the truth. After a minute, Jordan and the woman from the photos came into the room and were startled to see us.
Wait a minute. Why are the 2 of you here?
You have some nerve, you 3-timing pig. Jordan, how on earth could you justify having 3 wives and 3 whole families? Have you no shame?
Wait, I can explain.
Jordan, what are they talking about? Before Jordan could say anything, we rushed forward and told Emma everything. How Jordan had been living 3 separate lives in 3 separate cities. We showed her pictures of Jordan with our children over the years, and paperwork with his signature on them. At first, she was skeptical, but then the gears began to turn in her head, and she saw that we were telling the truth. While we were giving her our evidence, Jordan slipped out and drove away. The next few months were a bit unusual. Samantha and Emma both came to my house, along with their children, so that all of them could meet one another. After all, no matter how awkward and tragic the situation was, they were still siblings, and we felt it was only right for them to get to know one another. As for us, we hired a lawyer to represent all of us collectively and serve Jordan divorce papers. It took a bit to track him down, but once he was found, we took him to court. The judge had never seen such a case before, and after hearing everything that Jordan had done, he gave him the largest punishment that he could. Samantha, Emma, and I were each awarded $125,000 in compensation, and the rights to the homes that we lived in. On top of that, due to the horrific nature of what he had done, we were given sole custody of our children. After all, Jordan barely ever helped us with raising our children, so it wasn't like it would be much of a change to completely remove him from the equation. As for Jordan, he faced quite a lot of backlash. The media found out what Jordan had done, and our story became known all over the country. Samantha, Emma, and I were interviewed, and the outreach from the public was overwhelming. People from all over the country began to donate money and resources to help us get back on our feet. Jordan, however, was forced to resign from his job as the company forced him out. They didn't want anything to do with him once people had discovered what he had done. Unfortunately for him, though, the stigma of what he did followed him, and the only job that he was able to find was at a gas station. He went from being wealthy and jet-setting across the world to being poor and living in a single-room hovel. Months after we had been awarded our compensation, Samantha, Emma, and I used the donations and compensation money to go to school and find jobs to support ourselves. It was hard at first, but we leaned on each other and were able to make it work. There were times when all of the attention we received felt uncomfortable, but in the end, it helped more than it hurt us. And now, years later, our 3 separate families have become one. We have family gatherings and speak to each other over the phone constantly. I would have never guessed that this is how my life would turn out, but I also wouldn't have it any other way.